call, Sue? Here. We would like to welcome everyone to the September 24, 2015 Board of Education meeting with normal public comment of 5 minutes per individual, 30 minutes per session. With that, we'd like to welcome Elizabeth Burkhart.
Good evening. My comments for you this evening are brief. I wanted to share with you a phrase that has been profoundly helpful to me in my life. Perhaps it will be familiar to some in the audience. I suggest you listen closely. Nothing is secret that shall not be revealed, or anything hidden that will not be known and come to light. The truth is being revealed. The movement is gaining momentum each and every day. As facts are uncovered and shared within our community, we unite in a common goal. The people dedicated to bringing the truth to light are a dedicated and strong group of professionals who I am humbled and honored to work beside. The problems in our district may have been initiated by the former administration, but you have allowed the negligence to continue. By turning a blind eye to wrongdoing, you are just as guilty as the person who commits the act itself. So my final question this evening to each of you is, who among you has the courage to step forward and stop all the chaos? The choice is simple. You can either work with us or against us, but we will not go away.
Ladies and gentlemen, I stand here before you tonight with stories of millions of dollars unaccounted for, and for what feels like millions of questions unanswered. Communities are obligated to provide oversight for the operation of their local government bodies. Each and every resident in District 210 is affected by the mismanagement of our hard-earned local property tax dollars, regardless of family sizes or high school boundaries. No longer can taxpayers blindly trust District 210 to act fiscally responsible with a $100 million annual budget that has resulted in a deficit over the past 10 years. Mr. McFadden previously indicated he will be calling for an independent audit. Over the course of 5 days, several members of the Lincoln Way community hit the ground and talked to people across the district who share my feelings of frustration with the way our money has been managed. With more than 2,600 handwritten signatures from across the district, we, the undersigned residents and taxpayers of this community, are requesting a forensic financial audit of the Lincoln Way Consolidated High School District 210 for fiscal year 2005 through fiscal year 2016, to be performed by a neutral financial service firm with no prior relationships involving the district or other board members. You work for us. These are our tax dollars, our schools, and our kids. We will not stop until our questions are answered and our money is accounted for.
Members of the board, my name is Brian Trost. I'm the parent of 3 sons that currently attend Lincoln Way North. I'm just a regular Joe, so I have no fancy speech to speak tonight, but I do have a heartfelt plea. The community does understand the gravity of the district's current financial situation, and that the board must submit a deficit reduction plan by the end of this month. But that deficit reduction plan does not have to include the closing of any Lincoln Way school. Number one, let the newly hired business director consultant have some time to look at operations and see where some cuts can be made. Number two, invite the teachers union to the table and ask them if they are willing to help us solve this crisis. I don't know that they will, but we can ask them. Number three, this is easy. Charge $100, extracurricular fee. Surrounding high school districts already do this. Even Summit Hill Junior High does this. For families that cannot afford it, the student can donate 10 hours to the athletic boosters, and the boosters can pay the fee. This alone should cut that deficit 20%. Number four, form a committee represented by each of the 4 schools to work together as one Lincoln Way. This committee can work together to raise revenues. Do not underestimate what this community can achieve together in a unified spirit. Surely creative minds and willing supporters will generate considerable revenue, also cutting into this budget deficit. And finally, number 5, do the hard work that is required to cut 2 or 3% from this $100 million budget. This will close the deficit gap. Work with the One Lincoln Way Committee to identify areas to make these cuts. 3,300 students and their families are willing to do whatever it takes. And we want you to roll up your sleeves and get to work to save one of our high schools. The decision that you make in this deficit reduction plan will determine the reputation of this district for many years to come. Will it be that Lincoln Way, you, the board, made every effort to work with its community to keep its district intact? Or will there be whispers of mismanagement, mistrust, or worse? Hear the outcry from your people. Save our school district, and restore our community. Thank you.
Jordan, paging.
Hello, my name is Jordan Peugeot. I am a sophomore at Lincoln Way North, and I'm a very involved student. I am a member of the JV tennis team, varsity lacrosse team, and mathletes. But most importantly, I am a Phoenix. I am being forced to switch schools halfway through my high school career. Someone who is directly experiencing the blunt hit of their beloved school closing has needed to speak up for a long time. I have been attending board meetings ever since I heard rumors of Lincoln Way North closing, and I know that the board has made a mistake by voting to close North. As a student, I know that the combining of East and North will disrupt the learning environment. There may be fights among the combined students due to previous school rivalry. There will be extreme competition in athletics, and everyone who was lucky enough to represent their school on a team this year may not be next year. Most of all, there will be a disruption emotionally when the schools are combined. Many students in the class of 2017 at Central and East won't be allowed to graduate with their friends they have made during the first 3 years of their high school career. I would like to share with you a personal experience of mine due to North closing, which really made me angry about being forced to transfer to Lincoln Way East. This past Tuesday, I had a tennis match against another Lincoln Way school, and a specific group of parents were harassing some of the members of the Lincoln Way North tennis team. Whenever some of the girls that played for the North team would lose a point to the opposing team, some of the parents would cheer and shout remarks like, "This is why North is closing." This occurrence resulted in several of the North girls crying and becoming furious with those specific parents. It really surprised me that a group of middle-aged people would attack a couple of teenagers who have done nothing wrong. I would have never expected a grown adult with children to be so immature and have such unsportsmanlike conduct. I'm not assuming that all parents are like this, but what kind of adult attacks a teenager over something so small like a tennis match? This issue has since been resolved, but it makes me wonder how East will be after the closing of North. If parents and students continue to act this way, there's no way the Lincoln Way District will adapt to the closing. By this board deciding to close North, my fellow classmates and I are already being treated differently because of a decision that solely rests in the hand of the board. I feel the mismanagement of taxpayer money and the decision to close North without public consent by this board is wrong and being dealt with in an inappropriate manner. I don't want your pity or your sympathy. I don't want to hear, keep your head up, everybody will be okay. Because I know all North students will be okay. But what I do want is for the board to be held accountable for their misconduct and this financial disaster we now find ourselves in. We are much more than a school at North. We're a family. And as you know, we stick together. It means so much to be a Phoenix. I love Lincoln Way North. It's a second home to me and my fellow classmates. We will miss all of the amazing staff members and administration here. They are loved by all students, especially Dr. Cohen. I was devastated when the board voted to close North, a decision that will be this board's unfortunate legacy. The transition from North to East will not be an easy one, but we are the Phoenix and we will rise from the ashes.
I want to start out by saying I am glad I'm able to speak tonight. This is a very emotional subject for me because it was my daughter and her teammate who were screamed at and bullied by 3 parents from one of the Lincoln Way schools at the tennis match the other day. Sorry. Some of the things they were saying was, wipe out North. Come on, you're better than them. When they would lose a point, they would say, oh, it doesn't matter. North is closing anyway. This is very poor sportsmanship and unacceptable. You said at one of your meetings that we are all one, Lincoln Way. Well, I guess we're not. What kind of people berate and harass 2 girls and make them cry? So I'm sorry. Then they went into a group after that, and the coach had talked to the parents, and in front of everyone, they called my daughter a liar. What they should have done was apologize. I heard to the parents at the end of the game, I heard them myself yelling things and immediately went to their coach and I told them what I had heard. What is going to be done about this? I am very concerned for all of our daughters and sons. I do not want this to happen to anyone else. This has got to stop. In closing, I would like to say I have tried to make this a learning experience of what not to do. My daughter will be stronger and better from this awful experience. I want her to know that there are good people in this world, and hopefully we can move forward towards a positive experience as our kids transition. We have to realize that whatever we say or do makes a direct impact in someone's life. So I hope people think before they speak and make sure it's a positive one. And I would like to know what your plan is to merge these schools in academics, athletics, and clubs to prevent these types of issues in the future. Thank you.
Good evening, Lincoln Way District 210. I'm a taxpayer in Illinois. More importantly, I'm a property taxpayer in Lincoln Way District 210. What is the role of the Board of Education? In the state of Illinois, the local school districts were created by the legislature to execute the education policy as defined in the Constitution as a state government function. The Board of Education has specific duties and responsibilities to fulfill, including, but not limited to, selection of the superintendent of the school, establishment of general policies for the school system, employment of school personnel upon recommendation of the superintendent, adoption of the annual budget and approval of all expenditures, informing the public of the needs and the progress of the educational system. Most importantly, one of the main responsibilities of any board, not just ours, is to maintain financial accountability. The board members act as trustees of the organization's assets and must exercise due diligence to oversee the organization. The board must fulfill their role as fiduciaries. What does fiduciary mean, you may be asking? Fiduciary duty requires board members to stay objective, unselfish, responsible, honest, trustworthy, and efficient. Board members are stewards of public trust, must always act for the good of the organization. Not every board member can be a financial wizard. However, every board member needs to be a financial inquisitor. It is essential to understand basic terminology, be able to read financial statements and judge their soundness, and have the capacity to recognize warning signs that might indicate a change in the overall health of the organization. If a board member does not understand something, he or she must be willing to find out the answer. What you, the board, should ask each and every time: is our financial plan consistent with our strategic plan? Is our cash flow projected to be adequate? Do we have sufficient reserves? Are we specific expense rising faster than their sources of income? Are we regularly comparing our financial activity with what we have budgeted? Are the expenses appropriate? Do we have the appropriate checks and balances to prevent errors, fraud, and abuse? Having said all of this, and after a few short weeks looking into all of you, this is what I have discovered. District 210 has a yearly budget of close to $100 million. District 210 has incurred deficits of approximately $32 million over the last 5 years. The board has approved balanced budgets in each of those 5 years. Over the last 5 years, District 210 did not have a budget versus actual report to be reviewed by both the administration and the board. Public hearings were not held when interfund transfers were implemented, which I believe, and I think, and it's my opinion, that is against Illinois law. The district has used the same auditing firm for over 20 years. That firm, while not giving District 210 material weaknesses in any year, did, however, notate several deficiencies over those years. I will not list them here, but at one, a finding in 2010, not using appropriate journal and ledgers per section 100.3 of Illinois Administrative Code, which means federal expenditures did not reflect source of funds and significant adjusting entries were made to segregate expenditures. This has not been resolved, and in fact, the current chart of accounts does not adhere to IPAM code, which is Illinois' program accounting manual. During the August 1st, 2016 board meeting, the board listed 4 firms that were contacted as possibilities for district evaluation. None of them were hired. 12 days later, the board voted to close Lincoln Way North. It is in my opinion, having said that, and only mentioned a few occurrences that I've seen, I, as a taxpayer of the state and district, find the board not meeting its fiduciary responsibilities. It is in my opinion, with the exception of the new board members, Mr. Christopher R. McFadden and Mr. Ronald A. Lulo, that you, the board, as elected officials, have failed to perform some of your elected duties. With all of the degrees and intelligence, I expected more, so much more from all of you. Having said all of this, and I want everybody to listen to me very clearly, and it is in my opinion, I, as a taxpayer, find the board in dereliction of duty. I have the right to insist, rather demand, with the exception of McFadden and Lulo, of each of your immediate resignations.
District 210's audit committee has not functioned for at least the last 5 years. This during a time of record deficits that eventually led to the vote to close the school. The district had a prior audit finding indicating that the district does not have a formal fraud risk assessment program. The response to this finding was management will formulate a fraud risk assessment program and test it periodically. In a FOIA response received today, the district indicated that they have no records relating to a fraud risk assessment program. The district indicates on its website that it will develop and update a 5-year fiscal projection for all programs. In a FOIA response received today, the district indicated that they have no records relating to a 5-year projection for programs. The district had a prior audit finding indicating lack of proper support for journal entries. The district's response to this finding was,
Management will implement a procedure requiring all reclassifying journal entries to be supported by specific details. In a FOIA response received today, the district indicated that they have no records relating to journal entry procedure. Life safety funds. Over the past few weeks, I've spent 6 to 8 hours in the district offices reviewing expenses in the life safety fund. A review of these expenses for fiscal year 2010 through 2014 indicated approximately $4.6 million, or 41% of these expenses, were not supported by specific details. Additionally, the administration is uncertain if these funds should have been placed in the life safety fund at all, since it appears these funds were from general obligation bonds, not life safety bonds. The district's FY14 AFR, which was submitted a year ago in September 2014, plainly indicates on page 1 in red letters, district must submit a deficit reduction plan. No deficit reduction plan was submitted. Instead, a balanced budget was presented and approved. Why is this important? The timing is important because the decision process and data required to make a reasonably informed decision based upon published best practices simply could not be done in 3 months. It's obvious that the relevant pieces of information that were not made available to the board prior to the decision to close the school. For instance, the actual enrollment numbers per feeder school indicating the overwhelming majority of future students will come from the east end of the district, not the west end. The existence of district financial statements that include actual revenue and expenses broken down by school. In my opinion, the current board has 2 options. First option is to hope that the taxpayers will gradually accept and or tolerate this decision to close the school and stop asking questions. Or two, the board will stand up, acknowledge, and address the financial issues of the district. Based upon the 2,300 voters, 2,600 I found out today, 2,600 taxpayers signing a petition in just 5 days supporting a forensic audit, it seems to me this issue is not going to go away. It's time for somebody on this board to stand up and show some true leadership. We have to begin the process of restoring financial credibility to this district. Thank you.
My name is Karen Town, and I believe I bring a different perspective because I do not have kids in the Lincoln Way schools at this time. I am the mom of 2 North graduates, but I am not here to speak simply on their behalf. I am here to speak on behalf of the hundreds of North alumni who will have no school to come back to for future homecoming celebrations. And I am speaking on behalf of the thousands of students who will be affected by a school closure, whether they stay at their current school or move. I know this because my daughter went through this when she started at East and switched to North when it opened. The situation was difficult for students at both schools because they all had friends they no longer saw. Central and West students experienced the same thing when West opened. The difference between those transitions and the one that will occur when North closes is that back then, kids had more opportunities to participate in extracurricular activities after the move. This time, they will be displaced and have fewer opportunities. I am also speaking on behalf of the thousands of taxpayers whose tax dollars paid for the 2 new schools who are now stunned by our district's financial crisis. Finally, I am speaking on behalf of all the voters who voted in the last school board election. I am one of those voters. I got to my polling place right when it opened so I could vote before heading to work. I have done this for every school board election since I moved into this district because I think it is my duty as a citizen and it is the right thing to do. Now, I know not enough people vote in school board elections, and I suspect you knew that too. which may be why the prospect of closing a school was not a part of any of your campaigns. I recently read in the pre-election questionnaire the candidates completed by the patch. When asked what you thought the biggest issues facing our district were, none of you, including the incumbents, mentioned shrinking enrollment figures or serious deficit spending that was spiraling out of control. I was a strong supporter of the referendum to build 2 schools because I believed the administration when officials shared their enrollment projections with us. And when Dr. Wiley stressed how kids do better in smaller classes and when they're involved in extracurricular activities. Since I knew that educational research supported this assertion, I believed our kids would benefit from increased opportunities. Unfortunately, it now appears those enrollment projections were greatly overstated. Some of you on this board seem genuinely perplexed that the community lacks trust in you and the administration. I would like to read a quote from an article in a local paper I believe may help you understand. Quote, Wiley sees the district's future as a rosy one. The Lincoln Way communities are ripe for growth, he said. This article is dated June 23rd, 2013, which is several years after you have said you began making budget cuts. Clearly, the former superintendent chose to misrepresent the problems facing this district. And since there was no mention of lagging enrollments being a problem for the district prior to the election, I can only assume the board also chose to keep this from the public, or board members were completely in the dark. Obviously, either scenario is not a good one. The frustrating thing for someone like me is I thought I did all the right things. I read all the correspondence that came home from the district when my kids were attending a Lincoln Way school. I tried to be an informed voter by reading the candidate statements in the local papers. And yet, because the district's true financial woes were kept from the public, I was not fully aware of them. I only heard vague references about the state not meeting its obligations. So I feel I did my part, but I'm sorry to say I don't think the board or the administration did theirs. They admit they allowed the former superintendent to make all budgetary decisions. There was clearly a lack of oversight and an unwillingness to confront Dr. Wiley. It is my belief, based on recent comments made by board members, that you think the community should simply accept your decision to close North and go on. But we can't do that. I'm sure that most of our Lincoln Way students heard this quote in one of their history classes. Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Therefore, we need to explore the mistakes that were made that led to a situation where millions and millions of dollars were wasted so that it will not happen again. I'm glad to see some move toward financial oversight, but much more needs to be done, starting with the independent audit the community is requesting. As someone who voted for most of you, I am asking you to show you mean what you have posted on your official website, which is the Board of Education wants to be responsive to the needs of the people it represents. Please demonstrate your responsiveness by answering questions about decisions made in the past which led to a multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art school closing. When you start doing that, you just may earn back our trust.